Hey there, Zodiac lovers! Welcome back to Secret of the Zodiac, where we dive deep into the world of astrology and uncover secrets you never knew about your sign. Today, we're tackling a topic that might surprise you. Why do Aries lie? Now you might be thinking, but Aries is known for being so direct, so straightforward. Why would they ever lie? Well, here's the twist. While Aries is definitely honest and upfront most of the time, there are moments when even this fiery, bold sign might choose to hide the truth. Sounds interesting, right? You see, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, ruled by the planet Mars, the god of war, energy, and action. They're natural-born leaders with an infectious enthusiasm. But that doesn't mean they're immune to the temptation of bending the truth when the situation calls for it. While they're passionate and bold, they also have their moments of vulnerability. Whether it's to protect their pride, avoid conflict, or keep their independence, Aries sometimes resorts to lies that are more about survival than deception. But here's the thing. Aries isn't always lying to manipulate or hurt others. In fact, they often do it for one simple reason: to protect themselves. And that's what makes this topic so fascinating. Aries doesn't just lie for the fun of it. There are reasons behind it, and those reasons say a lot about their complex personality. So if you're ready to uncover the truth behind why Aries might lie in certain situations, stick with us. Trust me, you're going to learn a lot about how this fiery sign operates, both when they're telling the truth and when they're keeping a secret. Now let's dive into the first reason why Aries lies in these situations: to protect their ego. Let's start by talking about number one. Aries lies to protect their ego. Aries is undoubtedly one of the most confident and proud signs in the zodiac. They are known for their courage, their leadership skills, and their ability to take on challenges head first. But beneath all that fire and bravado, there's a hidden truth. Aries, just like any other sign, has a sensitive side, especially when it comes to their ego. This strong need for pride and self-image is a huge part of their personality, and sometimes that can lead to them telling lies. You see, Aries often feels the need to project an image of themselves that reflects strength, success, and self-sufficiency. It's not that they're necessarily trying to deceive others. No, they don't lie for malicious purposes. Instead, Aries lies to shield themselves from feeling vulnerable, judged, or insecure. The very thing that fuels their self-confidence is also the thing they'll go to great lengths to protect. If the truth reveals something about themselves that could hurt their reputation or make them look weaker, they'll often twist the truth a little bit or leave out certain details. For example, let's say Aries had a project at work that didn't turn out as expected. Even if the outcome wasn't great, an Aries may not be fully open about how difficult or challenging it was. Instead, they may downplay their struggle or exaggerate the positive aspects of their efforts. Why? Because they don't want to appear weak, incapable, or anything less than excellent. It's not about deceit in a harmful sense. It's about protecting their image. What's fascinating about this tendency is that Aries, by nature, is all about honesty. They're ruled by Mars, the planet of action, and they're often the first to speak their minds and say what they feel. But when it comes to their self-esteem or reputation, that directness can take a back seat. Their vulnerability makes them prone to protecting their pride, and this is when lies can slip in. But let's not forget, this is also the reason why Aries is so quick to jump into new things without hesitation, because they want to maintain their strong, capable image, even if deep down they are unsure or insecure. So, next time you find an Aries being a bit too enthusiastic about their achievements or brushing off a failure, keep in mind that it might be less about exaggeration and more about preserving that sense of self-worth they hold dear. Now, moving on to number two. Aries lies to avoid conflict. We all know Aries loves a good challenge. They thrive in competition. And when it comes to standing up for themselves, they're not afraid to throw themselves into the heat of an argument. But here's something that might surprise you. Aries doesn't like conflict as much as they show. In fact, one of the main reasons they lie is simply to avoid it. Yes, Aries, this fire sign that's known for being bold and fearless, actually fears getting into unnecessary conflicts. Let's break this down. Aries is naturally inclined to react quickly to situations, often without much thought. This impulsive nature can sometimes lead to arguments or heated moments, and Aries tends to jump into things without worrying too much about the consequences. However, deep down, Aries doesn't want to waste time with petty disputes. They want things to move forward, they want progress, and they want to keep things lively and exciting. When they sense that a confrontation could get in the way of that, they will often lie or hide the truth just to sidestep the drama. This can manifest in various ways. For instance, if Aries knows that telling you the full truth might lead to a disagreement or hurt feelings, they might say what they think you want to hear. They may not be intentionally trying to deceive, they simply don't want to stir the pot. This doesn't mean Aries is averse to standing up for what they believe in. They absolutely are. But when it comes to situations that feel trivial or unnecessary, they will lie to maintain the peace and keep things moving forward. Think about it. Aries is constantly looking for action, growth, and new challenges. They thrive in dynamic environments where there's constant movement and change. Conflict, on the other hand, feels like a roadblock to them, something that stops progress and ties them down in a way they don't enjoy. To avoid that, Aries might tell small lies or downplay certain truths that could lead to a longer, more drawn-out argument. For example, imagine an Aries at a party where a simple disagreement breaks out. Instead of letting the situation escalate, Aries might tell a white lie. Maybe they'll claim they're not bothered by something, even when they are, or maybe they'll agree with someone just to end the conversation quickly. This isn't because Aries doesn't have an opinion, but because they don't want to get caught up in an exhausting back and forth. And while Aries has no problem asserting themselves when it's necessary, they've learned that in certain situations, conflict just isn't worth it. Sometimes it's simply easier to lie and move on to something more exciting. Now let's think about how these two reasons fit together. On one hand, Aries lies to protect their ego, ensuring that they always appear strong, capable, and in control. On the other hand, they lie to avoid conflict, preferring to bypass uncomfortable situations altogether rather than face potential fallout. In both cases, Aries is trying to preserve something, their sense of self-worth and their peace of mind. But as we continue exploring the reasons Aries lies, you'll see that these are just two sides of a much deeper, more complex personality. And with that, let's jump into number 3, where we explore even more of the intriguing reasons Aries might lie. Stay tuned because things are about to get even more interesting. Let's dive into number 3. Aries lies to keep their independence. Aries is a cardinal sign, and that means they are natural-born initiators, always looking to pave their own path and explore new ventures. For Aries, independence is not just a desire, it's a fundamental part of their identity. They crave the freedom to make their own decisions, act on their impulses, and chase their passions without any strings attached. And this desire for autonomy can sometimes lead them to lie in order to maintain that control over their lives. One of the key things to understand about Aries is that they fiercely resist being tied down by anyone or anything. They're incredibly self-reliant and prefer to make their own rules. This need for freedom is what drives many of their actions, but it's also what leads them to lie when they feel that their independence is being threatened or compromised. If Aries feels that telling the truth would limit their freedom or lead to obligations they're not ready for, they may avoid full transparency. Take, for example, a situation where Aries is asked to commit to something that could restrict their schedule, like an important social engagement or a long-term responsibility. Aries might lie about how much time they have available, pretending they're too busy or that they have other commitments. The reality is, they're not trying to deceive for the sake of being malicious. They just don't want to be boxed in. They want to keep their options open, and a lie is often the easiest way to do that. Aries can also lie about their feelings or intentions if they think that being too honest might result in expectations that they're not ready to meet. This could be in personal relationships or work situations. For instance, Aries might tell someone that they're not interested in a relationship when in reality they're simply not ready to commit because they value their independence too much. They might lie to avoid getting involved in a situation where they feel too responsible or bound to someone else. The key here is that Aries doesn't lie to manipulate. They lie to protect their freedom and ensure that they remain in control of their life and decisions. The underlying reason for these lies is simple. Aries knows that once they're tied down, it can be incredibly hard to break free. They don't want to be in a situation where they feel like they owe anyone something or have to make compromises that limit their options. So, while they value honesty and directness, when it comes to preserving their personal space and freedom, they won't hesitate to lie. This need for independence is so deeply ingrained in the Aries personality that even the smallest threats to their autonomy can trigger this response. It's not about being selfish or mean-spirited. It's about self-preservation and holding on to that precious sense of individuality. In fact, Aries will often lie in ways that allow them to maintain their self-sufficiency without offending others or creating unnecessary drama. However, these little fibs are their way of making sure that they don't lose themselves in a sea of obligations. Now let's move on to number 4. Aries lies to keep the spotlight. Aries is a natural-born leader, and there's no doubt that they love being the center of attention. Their dynamic energy, confidence, and passion make them stand out in a crowd. They shine brightest when all eyes are on them, and for Aries, being in the spotlight is more than just an occasional boost to their ego. It's a natural part of their identity. So, it should come as no surprise that Aries might sometimes lie in order to keep that spotlight firmly on themselves. One of the reasons Aries lies to stay in the spotlight is their deep-rooted desire for admiration and recognition. Aries doesn't just want to succeed, they want to be acknowledged for their success, whether it's in their career, their personal life, or even their social circles. Aries thrives on the praise and admiration that comes with being seen as a leader, a go-getter, or a trailblazer. This desire for attention can make them exaggerate the truth or omit certain details to make themselves look more impressive or capable than they actually are. Imagine Aries at a party, for example. They're telling a story about something they did, but it's clear that they've added a few embellishments for dramatic effect. Maybe they're exaggerating their role in a group project or making a past accomplishment seem even grander than it was. Aries doesn't lie because they're trying to deceive in a malicious way. They do it because they crave admiration and validation. They want to be seen as the hero of their own story, and telling a little white lie to enhance their image is just a means to an end. Aries also lies to keep the spotlight on them when they feel like they might be losing attention to someone else. They thrive on competition, and when they see someone else getting recognition or praise, they'll often go out of their way to bring the conversation back to themselves. This could mean embellishing a story or taking credit for something they didn't do, all in the name of maintaining their place in the limelight. For Aries, being in the spotlight isn't just about feeling good. It's about feeling powerful and in control. They want to show the world that they're capable, successful, and deserving of admiration. But there's a deeper reason why Aries lies in these situations. It's all about their need for validation. While they might come across as self-assured and confident, Aries, like everyone else, craves approval. They want to feel important, and the spotlight is where they feel most alive. Lying in these moments allows them to continue feeding that need for acknowledgement, even if it means bending the truth a little. It's important to note that Aries doesn't lie out of a desire to hurt others. They're not malicious. Rather, they do it because they want to keep their reputation intact and ensure that they are always seen in the best light possible. This need for recognition can sometimes push them to blur the lines between fact and fiction. But the reality is, Aries is simply doing what they do best, taking charge of the narrative and ensuring they stay at the top of the game. When you think about it, Aries' desire for the spotlight is rooted in their need for purpose and significance. They want to feel like their actions matter, like their presence makes a difference. And while lying might seem like an extreme measure to some, for Aries, it's just one more tool they use to stay relevant and in control. Now that we've explored how Aries lies to protect their independence and to keep their spotlight, it's clear that these lies are deeply tied to their sense of self-worth. But as we continue, you'll see that there are even more reasons behind Aries' behavior. Reasons that offer a deeper look into the complex psyche of this fiery sign. So stay tuned because we're only just scratching the surface of why Aries might choose to lie. Let's dive into number 5. Aries lies to spare your feelings. Now I know what you're thinking. Aries, the bold, fiery, and sometimes stubborn sign, how could they possibly lie to protect someone else? Well, as much as Aries is known for their directness and sometimes blunt nature, there's another side to them that many don't see. Despite their bold exterior, Aries has a soft spot for the people they care about, and because they value their relationships deeply, they're not always as straightforward as they seem when it comes to protecting the feelings of others. Aries is a sign ruled by Mars, the planet of action, which means they can be quick to react and even quicker to speak their mind. They don't hold back when they feel strongly about something. But here's the thing, when it comes to the people they love or care about, Aries will often go out of their way to soften the blow. And sometimes that means telling a little white lie to avoid hurting someone's feelings. Think about it this way. Aries can be incredibly considerate when it comes to their loved ones. They don't like seeing people upset or disappointed. And because they have a protective instinct, they'll often lie to shield you from something painful. For instance, if you ask an Aries for their opinion on something you're really excited about, a project, a new idea, or even your appearance, they might tell you what you want to hear rather than the brutal truth. Aries knows how much their words can sting, so they'll hold back the harsh realities in favor of keeping the peace. But why does Aries do this? It's not about dishonesty or manipulation. It's about protecting the people they care about from unnecessary pain. They understand that sometimes truth can be too much to handle, especially in delicate situations. While Aries is usually all about being direct, they'll opt for a little fib to prevent causing emotional harm. This doesn't mean that Aries will lie to you every time they think the truth might hurt. They're still very capable of giving you honest feedback when it's necessary. But when the stakes are emotional, and they feel that telling the truth might lead to unnecessary discomfort or sadness, Aries will often lie to cushion the impact. This protective instinct is something that many people don't expect from Aries, as they tend to be seen as the tough, take-no-prisoners type. But in reality, Aries has a softer side that's not always visible on the surface. They value their relationships and want to maintain harmony, especially when it comes to the people they love. So, when they lie to spare your feelings, it's coming from a place of care, not from an intention to deceive. Aries, at their core, wants to be the person who lifts you up and makes you feel good about yourself. Even if that means bending the truth a little, they'll do it to keep you from feeling hurt. It's just one of the many paradoxes of this complex sign. They're straightforward and assertive, yet deeply compassionate and protective when it comes to the people they love. Now let's move on to number 6. Aries lies to win an argument. If there's one thing Aries hates, it's losing. Aries is a competitive sign, and when they find themselves in an argument or a debate, their competitive instincts come out in full force. They don't back down easily, and they'll do whatever it takes to win, even if that means bending the truth a little bit. While Aries is usually honest and forthright, when they are in a heated discussion, they can sometimes take liberties with the facts just to come out on top. Aries, being ruled by Mars, is naturally combative. They love a good challenge and relish in the opportunity to show their strength and intellect. But the downside of this fierce competitiveness is that Aries sometimes lets their ego get the best of them. They can become so focused on winning the argument that they lose sight of the truth. In their mind, being right is more important than being completely accurate. This doesn't mean Aries is intentionally deceitful or malicious. They're not lying just to manipulate you. Instead, Aries lies in arguments because, in the heat of the moment, they're driven by their need to be the one who comes out victorious. They might exaggerate a point, omit details, or even misinterpret facts to make their case stronger. It's not that they're trying to deceive you, they're just trying to win. Imagine an argument where Aries is passionately defending their point of view. They might say things like, "I've always been right about this," or "I knew this was going to happen," even if the situation isn't entirely aligned with the facts. They do this because for them, winning an argument is about proving their superiority and demonstrating that they have control over the situation. Their pride and competitiveness are at the forefront, and it can sometimes cloud their judgment when it comes to sticking to the truth. And while Aries usually has a strong sense of confidence, the truth is, their need to win often comes from a fear of being seen as weak or inferior. When they're wrong in an argument, Aries might feel as though they've lost something important, their status, their authority, or their sense of self-respect. So, to protect their pride and maintain that image of strength, they'll stretch the truth, tell a half-truth, or even flat-out lie in order to stay on top. But it's important to note that once the dust settles, Aries doesn't always hold on to these falsehoods. They may lie to win in the moment, but deep down, they know when they've crossed a line. Aries is a sign of action and momentum, so once the argument is over, they're quick to move on. They're not holding grudges or hanging on to the lies. They just want to win and get back to the next challenge. But in the midst of the heat, Aries can become so consumed by the desire to win that they lose sight of the importance of truth. The competitive nature of Aries, combined with their fiery temperament, means that arguments can often turn into more than just discussions. They become a battleground for their pride and need for dominance. Winning isn't just about being right, it's about asserting control and proving their worth. And in those moments, Aries might find themselves lying or bending the truth to get ahead. Let's dive into number 7. Aries lies to hide their vulnerabilities. If there's one thing Aries can't stand, it's feeling weak or vulnerable. They are ruled by Mars, the planet of action and strength, and so their natural inclination is to project power, courage, and confidence. But, like every other sign in the zodiac, Aries has their insecurities and vulnerabilities. The difference is, Aries is deeply reluctant to show them to anyone. In fact, Aries will go to great lengths to hide their weaknesses, and in some cases, this means lying. Aries isn't someone who easily shows vulnerability. It's not because they don't have emotions or fears, quite the opposite. But the very nature of Aries is to be bold, assertive, and to never back down from a challenge. Showing vulnerability to them is akin to admitting weakness, and they fear that others might take advantage of that. So instead of letting their guard down and showing their true feelings or insecurities, Aries might lie to protect themselves. For instance, imagine Aries facing a failure or an emotional setback, like a failed project at work or a personal issue they're struggling with. Aries is not going to openly admit that they're hurt or disappointed, at least not in front of others. Instead, they may downplay the situation, saying things like, "It's no big deal," or "I'm fine," when deep down, they're feeling frustrated or upset. It's not that Aries doesn't want to be honest. It's that they're afraid of being seen as less than strong, capable, or unflappable. This tendency to hide vulnerability comes from a deeply ingrained fear of being judged. Aries is extremely self-reliant, and when they feel exposed, it triggers a sense of insecurity that they would rather avoid. Even if they trust the person they're talking to, admitting to vulnerability feels like a betrayal of their self-image. Aries wants to appear invincible, and for them, that means not showing cracks in the armor. So instead of letting their guard down and asking for help, Aries might resort to telling lies that make everything seem under control, even when it's not. This need to hide their vulnerabilities also extends to their relationships. Whether it's in love, friendship, or family dynamics, Aries will often lie about how they're feeling to protect themselves. They might pretend that they're fine when they're actually struggling emotionally, or they might exaggerate their strength and resilience to hide any sense of weakness. They don't want to seem like they need anyone, and they definitely don't want to appear as though they've been hurt. To maintain their powerful exterior, Aries will go to great lengths to keep their vulnerabilities under wraps, including lying to avoid having to open up. But here's the thing. This need to hide their vulnerabilities can also backfire. The more Aries lies to protect their emotions, the more they bottle up their feelings. Over time, this can lead to emotional burnout or a sense of isolation because despite their bravado, Aries needs support and understanding just like anyone else. But because they're not comfortable being vulnerable, they continue to put up walls, which can make it difficult for them to truly connect with others on a deeper level. And while Aries' tendency to hide their vulnerabilities comes from a place of strength and self-preservation, it's important to remember that they can also learn to embrace their vulnerabilities when they feel safe and supported. But in the meantime, lying is a defense mechanism they rely on to maintain their image as the strong, fearless warrior. Now let's explore number 8. Aries lies to avoid being controlled. One of the most defining traits of Aries is their deep-seated need for independence. Aries hates being told what to do. They're natural leaders and go-getters, and they thrive when they're in control of their own destiny. This need for autonomy runs deep, and if anyone or anything tries to infringe upon their sense of freedom, Aries will push back, and sometimes that means lying to avoid being controlled. When Aries feels like they're being cornered or pressured into making a decision, they will often lie to escape from it. This could happen in a variety of situations, in relationships, at work, or even within their family dynamic. If they feel like someone is trying to impose rules, responsibilities, or obligations upon them, Aries will resist, sometimes through subtle deception. Rather than directly confronting the issue, they may tell a white lie to avoid complying with something they don't want to do. For example, imagine Aries being asked to take on an extra responsibility at work. If they're already stretched thin and don't want to take on more tasks, Aries might tell their boss that they're too busy, even though they are not necessarily as overwhelmed as they're letting on. Why? Because they want to avoid being controlled by someone else's expectations. Aries values their personal time and space, and they'll do anything to maintain control over their schedule and priorities. If lying is what it takes to keep their independence intact, they'll do it. This need for autonomy also plays out in personal relationships. Aries, while loyal and loving, does not want to feel trapped or restricted by anyone. They want to maintain the freedom to do what they want, when they want. So if someone they're involved with, whether romantically or platonically, tries to push them into making long-term commitments or demands, Aries might lie about their feelings or intentions to avoid being controlled. They might tell their partner that they're not ready for a serious commitment when, in reality, they simply don't want to feel tied down. This need to avoid control can make Aries seem elusive or unpredictable at times. They value their independence above all else and will often lie to protect that freedom. However, this behavior is not meant to be malicious. It's simply a reflection of Aries' deep desire to call the shots in their own life. Being controlled by anyone, whether it's a boss, a friend, or a romantic partner, is something they cannot tolerate, and they will do whatever it takes to avoid it, even if that means telling lies. What's important to note here is that Aries doesn't just lie to get out of difficult situations. They lie because they genuinely fear losing their sense of freedom. The idea of being controlled, even in small ways, is something that stirs up strong feelings of resistance in Aries. They'd rather lie to keep their independence than face the feeling of being stifled or restricted. In this way, Aries' lies are not just about avoiding unpleasant situations. They are about maintaining their power and autonomy. When Aries feels like someone is trying to dictate their life or limit their choices, their instinctive reaction is to lie and regain control. This need for personal sovereignty is a central theme in the Aries personality, and it shapes a lot of their decisions and behaviors, including their tendency to lie in certain situations. Let's dive into number 9. Aries lies to make things more exciting. Aries is a sign that thrives on excitement, adventure, and thrill. They are natural-born risk-takers and pioneers who hate feeling bored or stagnant. Their impulsive nature often pushes them to seek out new experiences and challenges, but that love for excitement also means they sometimes lie to make situations feel more thrilling than they actually are. Aries doesn't just live for the moment. They live for the rush that comes with it, and that rush sometimes involves embellishing the truth to make things seem more interesting. Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of energy and action, which means they have a high energy level and an intense desire to keep things moving. They're often the life of the party, the one who's always eager to try new things and stir up some excitement. But for Aries, even the simplest situation can feel dull if there isn't a sense of adventure attached to it. This is where their tendency to lie comes in. If Aries feels that something isn't exciting enough, they might stretch the truth to make the experience sound more thrilling or dramatic. For instance, Aries might tell a wild story about a weekend trip, exaggerating the events or adding extra details to make it sound like an unforgettable adventure. Maybe they'll talk about their experience in a way that makes them sound more daring or bold than they actually were, just to add an element of surprise or intrigue. It's not about being deceptive for the sake of hurting anyone. It's simply Aries' way of enhancing the story to match the excitement they crave. They want others to feel the same sense of exhilaration that they do. And sometimes that means adding a little extra flair to their narratives. Aries might also lie to make the situation feel more adventurous when they're bored. They don't want to do anything that feels routine or predictable, so they'll sometimes exaggerate to make it more compelling. Think about how they might talk about a mundane task or routine event as if it were the most thrilling challenge they've ever faced. To Aries, life should never feel ordinary. It should always have that spark of excitement. And if they have to fabricate a little bit of the truth to keep things interesting, they'll do it without hesitation. But why does Aries feel this need to exaggerate or fabricate stories? The answer lies in their passion for life. Aries isn't content with just getting by. They want to feel alive, and for them, that means experiencing everything in a bold, high-energy way. They thrive in environments that are unpredictable and full of surprises. When things get too predictable or boring, Aries will turn to lies as a way to reignite that excitement, even if it's only in their own mind. While Aries' tendency to lie for excitement might seem like a harmless trait, it can sometimes backfire. When they exaggerate the truth to make something more thrilling, it can lead to misunderstandings or confusion. People may start to question the credibility of Aries' stories, or even feel like they're being misled. However, for Aries, it's all about the adventure and the excitement of the moment. They don't want anyone to feel bored or uninspired, and they'll go to great lengths to keep the energy high and the excitement flowing. Now, let's move on to number 10. Aries lies to protect their secrets. Aries is a sign that values independence and autonomy, but they also have their own personal world that they guard fiercely. They are not always open about their inner lives or personal matters, and when it comes to keeping secrets, Aries can be surprisingly secretive. Although they are generally open and direct in most areas of their lives, there are certain things that Aries will keep close to their chest. If they feel that sharing a particular secret would make them vulnerable or give someone else too much power over them, Aries will lie to protect it. It's not that Aries is inherently secretive. They just don't like the idea of losing control. They want to maintain a sense of privacy and autonomy, and when a secret is at stake, they'll do whatever it takes to keep it under wraps. This could be a personal matter, a past mistake, or even something about their future plans. Aries doesn't want to reveal too much, especially if they feel that the information could be used against them or diminish their sense of power and control. For example, let's say Aries is dealing with a personal issue that they're not ready to share with anyone. Maybe they're going through a tough time or struggling with a decision, but they don't want to admit that they're not invincible. Aries may lie about their situation, saying everything is fine when it's not. They do this not because they want to deceive anyone, but because they feel that revealing the truth would make them look weak or vulnerable. To Aries, being strong means keeping their challenges to themselves and dealing with them privately. Aries also lies to protect their future plans or ambitions. They're constantly thinking ahead and plotting their next move, but they don't want anyone else to know too much about their goals. Whether it's a career change, a new project, or a personal endeavor, Aries will often keep their plans under wraps until they are ready to act. They don't want to share too much because they fear that others might try to interfere or influence their decisions. By lying or withholding certain details, Aries can maintain control over their plans and move forward without outside interference. The need to protect their secrets comes from Aries' desire for autonomy. They want to feel like they're in charge of their own life, and part of that means keeping certain things private. Sharing too much about their personal life, especially things that make them vulnerable, is something that Aries doesn't take lightly. They prefer to keep their emotions and their private matters close to the vest, only opening up when they feel it's necessary or safe to do so. But while Aries is protective of their secrets, it's important to note that they're not inherently dishonest. Their lies are often a reflection of their desire to keep control over their own life and maintain their sense of independence. They value their privacy and their ability to make their own choices without outside influence. So, when they lie to protect their secrets, it's not about deceiving others, it's about keeping their personal world intact and not letting anyone have power over them. Let's dive into number 11. Aries lies to get out of a responsibility. Aries, as we know, is a fire sign with a strong desire for freedom and independence. They are known for their adventurous spirit and dislike of being confined by obligations or routine. Responsibilities, whether big or small, can feel like heavy chains to an Aries soul. The idea of being tied down to something that takes away from their personal freedom is in many cases a cause for resistance. And this is exactly where their tendency to lie comes into play. When Aries feels overwhelmed or burdened by a responsibility they don't want to take on, they might lie to avoid it. For example, let's say an Aries is asked to take on a project at work or commit to a social obligation, like attending a family gathering or volunteering for an event. If Aries feels like these commitments will take up too much of their time, interfere with their personal goals, or simply don't excite them, they may lie to get out of it. They might tell you they're too busy, claim they have other pressing matters to attend to, or even come up with an excuse that seems perfectly legitimate, just to avoid being locked into that responsibility. This type of behavior doesn't come from a place of malice. Aries doesn't lie because they want to deceive you. They do it because they value their time and their freedom more than they value the burden of obligations. It's not that they don't want to help or participate in things. It's that Aries' sense of self and autonomy often comes first. When asked to be responsible for something, they may feel like their personal space is being infringed upon, and so they instinctively resort to lying to preserve that space. In relationships, this trait can show up in interesting ways. If Aries is in a relationship where they feel like there are too many expectations or demands being placed on them, they might lie to avoid fulfilling certain roles. They may avoid making plans, promise things they have no intention of following through with, or say they're too tired to engage, simply to maintain their independence. It's important to understand that for Aries, this desire to be free isn't about selfishness. It's a deep-seated need to keep control of their life and schedule. While this tendency to lie to get out of responsibility may seem frustrating to those around them, it's simply part of Aries' character. They are independent by nature, and the idea of taking on a responsibility that feels like a burden is something that instinctively triggers their need for escape. However, this can lead to issues in relationships or work environments if Aries is continuously trying to dodge commitments. In the long run, this avoidance can damage trust or create tension, as others may start to feel that Aries is not dependable. However, Aries, at their core, doesn't want to disappoint anyone. They are quick to jump into action and can be incredibly loyal and supportive when they are truly invested. But when the responsibility feels like it's taking away their freedom, they'll take the easier route of lying to avoid it altogether. This can be a coping mechanism that stems from their intense need to retain control over their own life. To Aries, the thought of being trapped by responsibility can feel suffocating, so they'll do whatever they can to avoid it, often at the cost of the truth. Now let's move on to number 12. Aries lies to make a quick escape. Aries, as we've seen, is a fast-moving sign. They crave new experiences, quick solutions, and constant action. But sometimes, that need for movement can create a situation where Aries feels cornered or stuck, and in those moments, they'll do whatever it takes to break free. One of the ways Aries does this is by lying to make a quick escape from uncomfortable or mundane situations. This is particularly evident when Aries finds themselves in a setting that bores them, drains their energy, or feels too confining. Whether it's a social gathering that's gone on too long or a work meeting that's dragging, Aries may lie to make a swift exit. For example, if they've been at a party they're not enjoying, they might suddenly claim they have an urgent appointment or that they need to leave for something important. The truth might be that they're simply tired of the situation, but instead of directly confronting their discomfort, Aries will use a lie to create a valid reason to leave. The key thing here is that Aries is not lying to hurt anyone. They are lying to preserve their energy and protect themselves from feeling bored or trapped. Aries loves to be on the go, always seeking the next adventure or challenge. When they're stuck in a situation that feels dull or unproductive, their impatience kicks in, and they'll fabricate an excuse to escape. It's about restoring their sense of freedom and spontaneity. Aries is not the type to sit idly by when they feel that things are stagnating. The moment they sense that a situation is no longer exciting or fulfilling, they're ready to move on. If they've promised to attend an event but are no longer enjoying it, they'll make an excuse and leave, not wanting to stay any longer than necessary. This quick escape can also happen in relationships. If Aries feels that a conversation or a commitment is becoming too routine or emotionally demanding, they may lie to avoid dealing with it altogether. This behavior ties back to Aries' need to constantly move forward. Stagnation, predictability, and feeling stuck are things that Aries despises. They need change, novelty, and excitement to stay engaged and happy. When they feel trapped or overwhelmed, they'll often lie just to escape the situation quickly, sometimes without thinking too much about the consequences. But while this need to escape can come across as flighty or inconsiderate, it's actually rooted in Aries' desire to keep things dynamic and full of energy. For them, the idea of being stuck in a situation that no longer serves them feels limiting and suffocating. So, to regain that sense of freedom and control, they'll often take the easiest route out, lying. It's their way of creating space for new experiences, whether it's leaving an uncomfortable situation or avoiding an emotional discussion that feels like it might limit their independence. As we wrap up our deep dive into why Aries might lie in certain situations, it's clear that this fiery sign is a lot more complex than many might first assume. Aries is often known for their boldness, confidence, and directness, but as we've explored throughout this video, there are layers of vulnerability, independence, and even fear that can drive them to bend the truth. Let's quickly revisit the 12 reasons we've uncovered in this journey. From protecting their ego to avoiding conflict, Aries lies for many reasons, but always with a sense of self-preservation or a desire to maintain control over their lives. They'll lie to keep their independence intact, to keep the spotlight shining on them, and even to avoid being vulnerable in front of others. It's not about deceit or malice. It's about Aries trying to navigate a world that often feels unpredictable and at times overwhelming. One thing is certain, Aries doesn't lie out of bad intentions. Whether it's to avoid responsibility or make a quick escape from a dull situation, the motivation behind their lies is deeply tied to their need for freedom, excitement, and a strong sense of self. They want to be seen as capable, confident, and invincible. But underneath that fiery exterior, Aries has fears and insecurities that they guard fiercely. And when they feel that their vulnerabilities or desires for independence are threatened, they might resort to lying as a form of protection. If you've been watching and thinking, wait, that sounds just like the Aries I know, you're not alone. Many of us have encountered these traits in the Aries people in our lives. But now that you understand more about the psychological and emotional reasons behind their behavior, you can start to see them in a new light. Aries isn't lying just for fun. They're often doing it to maintain their strength and self-esteem, or to keep their world feeling vibrant and exciting. They may not always be upfront, but their motivations are human, relatable, and based on the same desires we all share: self-protection, autonomy, and recognition. As we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Aries, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Do you recognize these behaviors in your own life or the Aries around you? Have you ever encountered an Aries who lied to protect their ego, avoid responsibility, or escape an uncomfortable situation? We want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation started. I'd love to know if any of these 12 reasons surprised you, or if you've seen these traits in action with an Aries. You know, If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about Aries and other zodiac signs, don't forget to subscribe to Secret of the Zodiac. We have so much more content coming your way that will unlock even more secrets about each zodiac sign. Whether it's understanding the emotional complexities of Taurus, the adventurous spirit of Sagittarius, or the strategic brilliance of Scorpio, we're here to help you decode the mysteries of astrology. So, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future videos. And hey, while you're at it, please like this video and share it with your friends. If you know someone who's an Aries, or if you've been trying to understand why an Aries might act a certain way, this video is the perfect resource. Sharing it helps more people understand their own signs, as well as the people in their lives, and that's what we're all about here at Secret of the Zodiac. Now, we've got a small request to ask of you. If you found this video helpful and you'd like to support our channel so we can continue making these in-depth and informative videos every day, consider contributing to the Super Thanks feature. Your donation, no matter how big or small, goes directly into supporting our work and helps us continue to produce high-quality content for you. The more support we get, the more videos we can create to give you the insights you love. If you'd like to see more Zodiac content on a daily basis and help us grow, Super Thanks would mean the world to us. Each donation helps cover the costs of production, equipment, and research, so we can keep bringing you the best astrology content on YouTube. And as always, your comments, likes, and shares make a huge difference too. You are what makes this community so special, and we are so grateful for every single one of you. So, whether you decide to support us through a Super Thanks or simply by liking and sharing this video, we truly appreciate you being a part of this journey. Let's continue exploring the mysteries of the Zodiac together. Remember, astrology is a powerful tool for understanding ourselves and the people around us. And whether you're an Aries or not, understanding the reasons why Aries might lie or act the way they do helps us better understand their motivations and in turn build stronger connections with them. So don't be shy. Let's talk about it in the comments. Subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And let's keep this Zodiac journey going strong. Until next time, keep your eyes on the stars and your mind open to the cosmic mysteries around you. Thanks for being here with us at Secret of the Zodiac.